Y'all thought I was dead? I'm on it. Came back on you instead. Karma. We ain't partners and we damn sure ain't friends. Raising hell till that's where you descend. You a damsel distress, and I ain't Captain Save a Hole neither. It's the first the rent due. Pay is gon' leave her. Any questions? Save it for the teacher. Only thing that you should ask is what's to pay me for a feature.
Let me get this. All right, we're gonna get this boy cracking.
All right.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the podcast. With me, my very special guest, Emmanuel Black, Smooth Black, the smoothest black of all time. What's going on, man? What's crack-a-lackin'?
It's good to be back again, you know.
Absolutely. We're about to it's the first time we're being some gentlemen about it. We're gonna pour some whiskey, we're gonna have some cigars.
Of course. Ice cream.
And we're both on the Johnny, so we're just we're being too much gentlemen about here. Let's
very much gentlemanly tonight.
do a little salute here.
All right, salute.
Salute to you, sir. Oh, so smooth.
I saw your friend was talking about Steve Crowder. I follow him to some extent. He's going through some like weird health issues right now. Apparently, he's like in the hospital and everything. So
Yeah, no, I don't actually think he's a white supremacist. I just that's one of those dudes I like fucking with on my Facebook.
Yeah, I follow some of his stuff, but he's hopefully he gets better and continues doing whatever he was doing. So
Yeah, I know he's
been
been in and out of the hospital a few times recently.
I was following him on YouTube. I think I was following him. I think he got like deplatformed or something, so you don't really see him too much anymore. You don't really get active.
So I got a political confession for you, man.
All right, are you're about to turn into a Biden supporter, or what's the...
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. So politics has gotten so crazy that I'm pretty sure I'm a centrist now. Like
Okay.
I've like
You're a centrist now. Okay, so you agree with like 2016 Obama now, basically.
Well, I feel like I agree with the strategy of, trying to find compromise and all that type of shit. Especially when it comes to like just being citizens. You know what I'm saying? Like right now, just the human beings, the regular people who, I think we talked about this one of our last podcasts, but just like so many people that really don't need to be talking about politics all day or caring about it. It's become such like a thing that like people are so polarized, and it's just you go on social media and you can't, it's like one person's a communist, one person's a racist, it's one extreme or the other. Nobody seems to have any common ground or nuance, and it's like
Crazy.
I can't keep this shit lit. It's the cigar is a thing that you got to figure out because you're not really supposed to inhale them. So it's not like weed or something where you got to like, keep you puff, but you don't inhale.
So you're supposed to take a puff like once or twice a minute, I think, to keep it at the optimal temperature. So.
This will be like cigar training.
There it is. I was doing cigars. Cigars is my thing for a while, so I was on it pretty heavy. Like whenever I like something, I just totally nerd out about it. So I was like doing like research on the best cigars and where they come from, and how to smoke them, and how to light them. There's a correct way to do all of these things, basically. So
that's what's up. But yeah, that's just how I'm feeling lately. Like I'm feeling like things are so polarized, and like I keep putting, and I've always been like this. I've always been a devil. I mean, that I've always been like a devil's advocate kind of person. But like, I feel like I'm having to play devil's advocate so much now. It's just like, I feel like it's so hard for people to see common ground with anything. And it's hard for me too, like this whole critical race theory, that's been like a hot button topic. Right. And so I'm trying to find like, what is an unbiased understanding of what that is? Because I'm either getting, they're coming to tell your white children that they're evil, Or I'm not really getting like a liberal kind of, the only thing that I've heard from the left on it, which I don't disagree with, is just telling, you know, the real shit that's happened through history. So like, I don't disagree with that. That's what history is supposed to be. But if it's like, if it's at the same time, like saying like America needs to like suffer and like burn for its sins, then I think that might, I don't know if I'll be on the same page with that.
That's a bit much, you know. I haven't really gotten too far into it, but I think, you know, from talking to other like liberal people, that a lot of times these Republicans, they'll find these wedge issues, as Walter says, and they'll just blow them up basically into something that's way bigger than what it is.
Yeah.
I was talking to this guy I know, my brother, who happens to be, he's gay, and I was talking to him about transgender issues, where I was like, I mean, whatever a grown person wants to do with their genitals, I'm cool with that. But when it comes to like, you know, like you got the kids involved and stuff like that, and you're taking like 7-year-olds and putting them through like puberty blockers and stuff like that, and stuff that can't be reversed, then I have a problem with that.
Yeah, no, that's a big problem.
That's what like the Republicans will harp on. But when I started to do my once he told me, he said, you know, that stuff is not irreversible, right? They put you on puberty blockers. That can be reversed, you know. So I started doing my research on it, because a lot of Republican people, they go up there and they'll tell you that's irreversible and that they're like chopping 7-year-olds' penises off and stuff like that. And they're not doing that, you know.
I don't think I've heard that one, but I know what you're talking about.
It is actually, it's reversible. So if the kid turns like 15 and decides that he wants to be a boy again, then they can just take him off for whatever he's on, and he can, you know. So it's okay. That's a little bit more palatable than what you will hear from, you know, a lot of strong.
Yeah. No, that's the problem, right? When you're trying to come to a conclusion. I mean, the puberty blockers, the only thing I would say is, you know, I'm sure there's a way to reverse things, but I feel like, you know, with the puberty, I'm not a scientist. Let me, full disclosure, everybody who's watching this or listening, I'm not a scientist. So I'm out of my element a little bit, but from what I've, you know, the things that I've listened to, the things I've read, it's still, you know, in terms of nature, that time period going through puberty is still important to develop it. So at that point, after they go through that phase, and if they're out of puberty, then if they're biologically a woman or biologically a man and they want to go back to that biological space, then they're going to have to take either, you know, testosterone to boost it, estrogen and that kind of stuff. This is where I am in my element. So in my early 20s, like way too early, like 21, 22, I was just getting into working out, and my friend was telling me about testosterone boosters, and he's like, man, these are like the cheat code. Like you take these, like you'll get results so fast. And I got results like fast. Like I got jacked, I lost fat, I was like probably in the best shape of my life.
So not to interrupt you, but these are the ones that you can like get from like GNC and stuff, or there's like some other like less.
Well, they don't sell them anymore, but yes, at the time they were from this exact cocktail. This exact cocktail got outlawed, but
just like back when ephedra was legal.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I wasn't using ephedra, but ephedra probably was legal at the time, because this was 2010 or something. But
yeah, that worked pretty good too. That was before I started working out, but I heard that stuff, it was like legit as far as how it worked, you know. So
yeah, but what's unfortunately happened, because I got like on those, and you know, if you have like a smart person that's, you know, in your corner, they basically tell you, you know, you got to cycle off this stuff, kind of like steroids. I never went off of it because I didn't know like what to do.
Okay.
And so I took it for way too long, and it fucked up my endocrine system. Like it just like my endocrine, and it still hasn't recovered really. Like it's way harder for me to like stay a certain way, like one way or another. Like it's my body's like all over the fucking place. So, you know, this past year, and this is like 10 years later, you know, I've been working with my doctor to try to correct some of this stuff, but I was way too young to be taking that shit. And that was in my early 20s. Mm-hmm. Like you're really not supposed to be messing with testosterone until you're at least in your 30s at the very least. And that's really got to be even severe circumstances, even at that. So it's just, obviously I wasn't trying to be a woman. I was trying to make, I guess, be more of a man, I guess, but it, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it was like, I shouldn't have been doing that. I was an adult. Nobody, you know, I didn't have to be sneaky about it. I didn't have to get authorization, but just from what my experiences with that, I think even that should be more regulated. So I'm not really in the position where I'm just like, yeah, let little kids, because they feel like a girl or feel like a boy or whatever the case is.
I agree.
I think that you can, I'm totally fine with a few things. I'm fine with if they really like feel better if you identify them as a girl, let's identify them as a girl. If they feel better being identified as a boy, identify them as a boy. I have no problem with that. You know what I'm saying? It's when you're messing with the physical element before they're an adult to make that decision and like really think about it.
I get it. Yeah.
That I'm like, you know, I'm not really in agreement there. But
so back to these boosters though, like you had to like get these from like, you know, a friend or something that like down the street, or was like you could like go in the store and buy them back then?
Well, you could buy them from a store. This guy was I mean, I don't know. He won't care if I shout out. Shout out to Chuck. No, his name is literally Chuck Norris. I think
I've seen him on your page. I was like, this guy's name is really Chuck.
Yeah,
Norris.
so he's always like the workout guinea pig. He's always got a new, like these fads that happen. He's on these kicks like way before they even become mainstream. Like he's deep. He's deep in like the online underground of like workout secrets. And so he's always a guinea pig himself. And he's the one who told me about him. And I was just like, at the time, I was like, shit, dude, I mean, and that's the thing. That's me personally. I'm always, you know, trying to find the easy way out. I literally just got into working out. Like wasn't giving it no time. I was like, yeah, let me try these things. And it just like, it took off. But, and again, not that I'm co-signing it, but probably because I was so young too. So it was that mixed with me being a 21-year-old. And so it's just, I'm already having testosterone. And then on top of that, boosting it up and like maximizing it to its full potential. Yeah. I mean, it's gonna, of course, you're like a super soldier at some point. So, but yeah, he had them, and he basically is like, you gotta try these. And I bought a pack of them, and yeah, and they stopped. That brand just like went out of business. First they tried coming out with something similar to the first cocktail, but they, you know, that cocktail was just, that was the one, that was the potent one that worked, and they couldn't legally, the FDA ended up banning it. And so there's definitely some shit in there.
I see they still have like testosterone boosters and like GNC and stuff, but most people say it's trash. It doesn't actually do anything, you know. So
yeah, they've gotten more strict on what's actually in those. But the thing is, with any type of supplements, they're not really, I mean, how much are they? They have to, like, the companies have to really like have some shit happen for the FDA to really get involved. I mean, it's kind of like you could be getting anything.
Yeah, like with the Ephedra was legal, and I heard it was working really good. But I guess some people were having like heart problems and stuff. So they you know, so like, yeah, back when I was in the Marines, yeah, there was that big thing about Ephedra. And, but yeah, I wasn't really on anything at that point. I was just,
were people in the Marines just trying to like stay awake or something? They were like using it like a no-dose.
Yeah, they were trying to stay awake, and then of course, you know, Marines like to work out and be strong and stuff like that. So yeah, people were taking those supplements, trying to find the easy way out, like you said, you know.
Yeah.
So
well, for something like that, I mean, I can't. I was definitely not putting my life on the line for my country. I was just trying to look good for MySpace pictures. So.
We're trying to look good so we can be intimidating and beat people up, and you know, so
yeah,
anything like that. So
yeah. But yeah, no, I wouldn't. I don't mind. I mean, the whole like, obviously, it's a controversial thing, and I'm sure it's happened before. But if they found a way to like just do some Captain America shit to people in the army, like, I mean, I don't know if I'm really, as long as there's no like terrible side effects. I mean, who can really argue with it, you know?
Yeah, I definitely would have tried it, you know, because yeah, back then I think I was like 115 pounds back then or something. So I was my appetite's really small, so I was always trying to find a way to get jacked, but I didn't really eat enough, you know, because my appetite was, so I had to find a way around that, trying a way to get more calories in my body, you know. So I finally started figuring that out like 3 years ago. So
what year was it when you enlisted again?
That was 03. Yeah.
Oh, so this is Iraq. This is like, we're in the heart of the Iraq War.
Yeah, yes, exactly. You know, so I think that, yeah, I was like 106 pounds when I joined
So you know what I'm about to ask you then.
What are you? Did I deploy?
Huh?
You mean like did I deploy?
Well, not even just that, but like because when we're more calmed down in terms of a war situation, you hear about like the army, the military being kind of picky about who they let in, and they find all these reasons, like if someone has like a stub toe, not to let them in. But like being in the heart of the Iraq war, and you're like, you know, like you're saying, you're like very lightweight. Like, do you feel like that part of them, like, hey, we need as many soldiers as we can get, that was part of the reason, or that you got in?
They were definitely still turning people down at that point. Like if you had too much, like if you had to get a drug waiver, or if there's a lot of people in my school. Like I went to a pretty bad public school, so a lot of people couldn't pass the ASVAB, which is like their like intelligence IQ test and how smart you should be to be in the military. So there's a lot of people that couldn't pass that test and they couldn't get in. A lot of people that may have gotten arrested for one thing or another. A lot of people that might have had some little smaller health issues or something like that. They couldn't get in, you know. So yeah, like I mean, besides me being pretty small, I was healthy. I was able to pass the ASVAB, so they were fine with letting me in, but they were rejecting other people for different reasons.
Was this fresh out of high school?
Yeah, this is directly. I think it was possible. Yeah, I think I graduated. Yeah, I left in June, so I graduated sometime in June. I think like a week after I graduated, yeah, I was out of there, you know. So
was part of it like you feeling like the patriotic kind of thing? Like this is 2 years after 9/11, really.
Yeah.
So
no, for me personally, no. I did watch a lot of action movies and play a lot of, you know, video games with like, you know, heroes and valor and glory and all that. So I wanted to be that. I wanted to be, you know, a commando. You know, the fighting for the country part, that was cool. I didn't really feel like some deep inner, you know, mission to go fight for my country specifically. But, you know, yeah, I just wanted to be an action hero just for the heck of it, basically, you know. So.
Well, damn, that's more of a shallow reason than me taking the fucking legal steroids, dude.
there it is, you know. Like, you know,
yeah, I mean,
shallow reasons for stuff, you know. So yeah, I mean, I was 17 when I signed up. So yeah, I wanted to be an action hero. I didn't want to go to college. I was tired of writing papers and do all that regular stuff. So yeah, I want to go outside and shoot some guns and blow some stuff up. And you know, so I got to shoot guns and blow stuff up. I didn't blow any people up or shoot any people, but I did.
Yeah, well, that probably saved you some PTSD, I'm sure.
I'm sure, you know, which is good, you know. And like in retrospect, I'm glad that I didn't actually go over there and do all that type of stuff and, you know, experience those issues, because that does happen. I know people that have those issues, you know. So
from your like experience, because I feel like I hear this a little bit, you know, obviously the movies, TV shows, they amp everything up, right? Everything's like got to be on 1,000% to keep you know, people engaged to watching. But I've heard like for the most part, the action wasn't as common. You know, it wasn't like super common to have action.
That's what made it dangerous.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, no, like I didn't go over there, but this is from like my experience, like from being around a whole bunch of people who did go over there and everything like that, and like a lot of friends and everything. Like it would be, nothing would happen for like a month, you know, or maybe 2 months. So you just go out, patrol every couple of days and drive on the same streets, and nothing would happen. And then, but that would be on purpose. So you get complacent, and then one day you're just in your regular mode of things, and you're zoned out. You're thinking about home. Then something blows up, you know, and then all next thing you're in a firefight, and people are getting shot, and so it was a cycle like that. And then like the next day, nothing would happen, and then you would get back into your rhythm of things. And that's how it would happen, you know.
One thing I always wonder, like, I feel like the answer for this is obvious, but like I remember, you know, I've never been an MMA fighter, really. I haven't trained fighting at all, but like I think back, and this is the only thing I can do to relate to this. So it's a big leap, but bear with me. So like, you know, in high school or whatever, when you get in those fist fights, your brain isn't like, it's not working like right now. Like I know what I'm going to say to you. Everything's kind of, you know, I feel like I have control over the situation. I'm conscious, I'm in it. But like the second you go into like fist fight mode, it seems like you're not really controlling yourself. Like it's just like, it's like it happens and then it stops, and either one person won or the other person didn't. It's almost like you don't really remember it happening while it's happening. Like
exactly like that.
Yeah, like when a gunfire breaks out, it's kind of like instincts. It's all like, so That kind of scares me though, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like you spend all this time training. Is the idea that like you spend all that off time training, so when your instincts kick in, it's like your subconscious is already trained for this and aiming and everything, even if your conscious isn't there, kind of thing? Is that kind of the idea?
It's like they tell us in training, yeah, like we're gonna do this over and over and over again. So when something does happen, you know, you're automatically gonna react in this way. You're not gonna, because your brain is gonna be in fight or flight mode. So like you're gonna be in like animal mode basically, you know. And they would teach us like different ways of reloading and stuff like that. So like when you reload, or like when you got your pistol and you run out of ammo, you know, a lot of times in the movies you'll see like they'll cock the slide back like this with their fingers.
Yeah.
And so, but when you're in a combat situation, it's harder to, those fine motor skills of using your fingers, it kind of goes out the window. So they would teach us, you cock it like this with your whole hand, which is easier for you to do in a stressful situation. So, you know, you learn little different things like that. And then the more it happens, the more you get in those type of situations, like you watch like cops and stuff like that, like it becomes more natural to you where you don't like totally lose your mind. Like the first time it happens, yeah, it's like you're gonna like lose your mind basically, you know, because you're not gonna really be accustomed to that life and death type of situation. But as it happens more and more, then you get used to it to some extent where you're not totally on 100. You might just be on like, you know, 85 or 90 or something like that.
Yeah, it almost seems like the more you are prepared for it and the lower you can keep your heart rate, the more you can keep control over the situation. Because there's so much shit that you have to I mean, if you want to survive, I guess, how much shit you had to be aware of. And okay, you know, this again, I haven't operated a military grade machine gun or anything, but let's say there's on average, what is it, 30 bullets in a for like what you on it for an AR or something?
Yeah, for like an M16, you got 30 rounds in there. But
30 rounds,
like,
so
got like the real machine gun, you might have 100. You could have 100 rounds in the drum, you know, so which doesn't last as long as you would like it to.
Oh, I'm sure, because if you're just pulling the trigger and it's just going, then
to not really like in the combat, you're supposed to like 3-round bursts. Like in the movies, you see that they just let the whole thing off.
Yeah,
you're not supposed to do that because you're like melt the barrel, and your accuracy is going to be all over the place. But like 3-round bursts, so you can kind of control where those rounds are going. You know, so.
And then you can kind of be conscious of how much bullets you have left. I'm sure that's
exactly. Part of, you're not going to use your whole belt of ammunition in a minute. You know, so So,
what was your what were you typically carrying around on a day-to-day basis?
Except for the regular M16, you know. So I mean, just to keep it like, I wasn't in combat, you know, but just so I want to make sure that's clear. I want people to watch like, this guy, I was with him, he didn't go, you know. But yeah, like I had the M16, but like a lot of times they'll train you on how to use different weapons, because you never know. Like, guy that has the machine gun, he might go down, so you have to go and get his machine gun and know how to use it, you know. So we learn how to use other, you know, different weapons, like there's like a machine gun grenade launcher. I forgot, I think it's like the Mark 22 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it like shoots grenades at like 60 rounds per second. So it's like insane, you know, like, but yeah, that's pretty dope. It's pretty heavy though. It takes like
I'm sure
to carry it around. But yeah, like that's pretty insane to be shooting grenades at like 60 grenades in like a minute, you know. So it's
holy shit. I'm sure, well, I don't know, but I have to imagine, like, when it comes to like the crazier the weapon, the more like you got to be trained and you have to go through some shit to get to that. And
you got to get qualified on that weapon and all that type of stuff. So that so we all get qualified on like the M16, but like the guy who has the machine gun, he has to qualify with the M16 and his machine gun in order to be able to carry the machine gun, or they'll bump him back down to just having, you know, just a regular M16. Then you got the M203, which is the one, like, I think some of the stuff may have changed as time goes, because now I look back, it's like, wow, I haven't been in the military in like 13 years now. So like a lot of the things have changed in the different, you know, methodologies and stuff like that. But yeah, like the 203, which you may have seen on like Call of Duty, like the noob tube. You seen that?
Okay.
Yeah, like the grenade launcher under the that too, which was pretty cool, you know. So, well, I think Scarface, the one with like Hello to My Little Friend.
Yeah,
the one, like, you know. But the thing is, the funny thing about that, if you watch Scarface, the iconic moment when he shoots the grenade into the door and it blows up, like, there's an arming distance for that grenade. So in real life, that grenade would just hit the door and not blown up. You
Oh
know,
wow.
so, but only military people really know it. So I think it's an arming distance of like 90 yards or something like that. So it's not a short range thing because you wouldn't want to arm that close anyway because it would have killed him too.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, you know, about grenades too. Like I was, I mean, it was funny. I was just Avengers was just on to talk about, you know, obviously unrealistic stuff, but like, but this is a good example because a lot of movies are like this. The grenade lands in front of the person, grenade, and then they like just turn their body and they're fine. Like,
Oh, yeah.
and they let the gust of the explosion like carry, like get them away. They're not getting away from their own doing. They're just getting away from the gust of the explosion. Like somehow that the explosion saved them.
Yes. When I was watching where they all threw all these grenades and like somebody's like he was in some type of vehicle and they all threw all their grenades in there. It was like 60 grenades and somehow he got away. But it took them forever to blow up. I was like, no, there's like 3 or 4 seconds that you have before these grenades blow up.
Yeah.
I cannot think about what I was watching, but it was it was Die Hard 2.
Okay.
I think it was Bruce Willis was stuck in some type of enclosed space and they all threw all their grenades in there. Like they threw like 20 grenades in there and then he still had time to get away because Bruce Willis, you know. So,
yeah. Well, plus, I mean, I don't know how likely it is because I know grenades have a lot of hard casing around them, but you know, a lot of the idea is you throw it and just the impact of the throw will blow it up. That way there's not a lot of time for someone to get away from it, right? I mean,
no, when it lands, the impact doesn't make it. It's gonna explode when it's supposed to explode.
Oh, okay. So the impact won't make it explode any faster.
No, it's
okay.
like it'll land and it'll just stay there. Yeah, in movies, it always like explodes on impact because that looks cool.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first saw a real grenade explode in real life in the Marines. I was like disappointed because I was expecting like a big fiery like Desperado explosion.
Yeah.
And it was just like the Call of Duty explosion with a little dust cloud.
Yeah.
That's it'll still kill you just as good, but yes, it's not as cinematic, you know.
Yeah, doesn't look as glorious.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that is crazy. That is wild. So where did you end up going to the Middle East or did you stay on base here?
I stayed, yeah. Like I went after I finished all my training, I went to Washington State. And so there's like a military base there where we guard like special secret stuff up there. And
that's up the West Coast, right?
Yes. Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, Washington State, yeah.
Okay.
And then after that, my tour there was over and I went down to Camp Pendleton and I was with a different unit, First Light Armored Reconnaissance. And I would have deployed with them, but there wasn't enough time left on my contract. So I was like, yeah, I'm done with this now. I could have extended my contract and deployed anyway, but I was like, yeah, I think I'm good.
How long did it last for?
My whole enlistment?
Yeah.
It was just a regular 4 years, you know.
Oh, damn. You got to be 4 years without having to get like, so they really must, you know, like they must have had a lot of people that they like already had over there. And then they had enough of a, what would you call it, like a reservation or something, enough of a reservoir of people.
They called me. They wanted to call me back, but I was in college at the time, so I was able to use that to not have to go because they recalled me after I got out, but I was already in college, and so I was able to use that as an excuse to not actually get recalled. You know, because I think I remember this is actually how, I don't know if I told you this last time. This is how I actually got into politics. Like when I was, I didn't know what a Democrat and a Republican was until like halfway through my military career. I didn't know what it actually meant. And I think toward the end of my enlistment, it was John McCain and Obama. And McCain was really, he had a hard on for the whole surge thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, if there's a surge, that means they're going to keep me here if there's a surge, you know? And so I was like, I don't want that. And I think I was watching the news in my room and Keith Olbermann came on. And he had his whole special comment thing on his show where he was really like laying into George Bush. And I was like, you know what? I like this guy. Whatever this guy is, this is what I am. And so he was a Democrat. I was like, yeah, I'm a Democrat, you know?
Yeah.
So sort of following things from that point, you know?
So your parents, I think we talked about your parents really weren't political at all.
No, I mean, they were like Democrats, but they weren't really political.
They weren't like, well, also, you know, again, this is pre the social media political explosion too, right? So it's like there'd be like a sea of people you wouldn't know what their politics were because during the MySpace days, you know, and I don't mean to call people old, but older people didn't get on MySpace, right? It wasn't really till Facebook where you just had this multi-generational layer of people all coexisting on the same social media. So it's that's one thing that interests me, like why old people didn't go to MySpace, but I think I kind of know because like of the glitter and like the glitziness of it. Like if you're an older person, you're gonna be like, yeah, this probably isn't for me. And if you were an older person on MySpace, you look kind of creepy and stuff. So it was like
I was talking to my dad on Father's Day. I was just talking to him about his life, and I think he said, I was like, so when was the first time you voted? And I think he told me that he voted for like Jesse Jackson, because like I think in the 70s, Jesse Jackson, he was in the primaries. I think obviously he lost, but yeah, somebody beat him to be the nominee.
Didn't he run as an independent, or am I getting that wrong?
No, he ran as a Democrat, and
okay.
Yeah, I think he did pretty well, but he didn't make it all the way through. And I guess Jimmy Carter, whoever, beat him. And I think my dad said he didn't vote again until Bill Clinton. You know, so yeah, like that's kind of how they were. And then yeah, yeah. And so after that, yeah, like once Trump came up, everybody knew they had to vote at that point. So he voted then. So.
Yeah, it is interesting how just the last, I guess, last what 12 years maybe that you would really see this kind of just politics becoming more mainstream.
Oh yeah, I think Obama helped that a lot, because I mean he was such like a cool guy.
Yeah,
people wanted to be involved in whatever he was talking about. So I think he brought people out. And then once there was that big like change of when, you know, Trump came after him, all these people were still in the politics, and they're like, well, I don't like this. Let me make sure this doesn't happen again. Because I didn't vote in the 2016 election. Like my first time voting was the primary, not the primaries, but the midterms. Like when I voted for whoever the people were in the midterms. That was my first time voting. Because
are you talking about 2007?
No. Like actually, I didn't vote for Obama. You know, I was going to vote, but then I saw that, you know, I live in Maryland. It's gonna be blue forever.
Oh, okay, I got you. I see what you're saying.
Of a point, and then but once Trump won, I was like, man, Trump could have won Maryland. I would have felt like an ass if he had won and I didn't vote. You know, so after that, I was like, yeah,
because Maryland turning kind of purple. Is Maryland turning kind of purple where it looks like it?
No, I mean, Trump wouldn't have won Maryland, but he could have. If he did, then I would have felt a certain way, because a lot of states that were blue, Trump was able to kind of flip those states.
Yeah.
So, okay, we really have to, you know, pay more attention to these things, because if you look back further, you know, you got Bush, or you got Clinton, then you got Bush, and you got Obama. Like mostly everybody was kind of the same. The politicians were kind of sensible, or like center right, center left. But then once Trump won, we saw it's possible that somebody crazy can get in there, and that really got me to start voting.
Yeah, I'm interested in because me and you, that's what I was gonna bring up. Oh man, I wanted to draw a diagram and I didn't do it, but because I'm a centrist. Like I know that me and you have this. I used to get on your case about the centrist thing, but because I feel like I'm a centrist, but I feel like we're not in the same like category. Like I feel like I came up with this new political diagram, and I truly think this is the more accurate way of and if I had a piece of paper here, I'd do it. But
center left, center right, center, you know, so you're probably more center left, I would think, you know, than
well, it's not like, okay, so I'm gonna try to explain the diagram that I came up with that I like can make the most sense of. So like there's 3 rows, right? So from top down to bottom. So the highest row would be like authoritarian. So you could have authoritarian right on the extreme of that, authoritarian left on the extreme of that, right? And then you have the middle row, which is kind of like where our politics have been historically in America, at least the last 50 or so years. You have like, I guess, central left, central right, nothing too is kind of status quo, nothing too crazy is going to happen one way or another. You know, pro-war, but not like, you know, not like Hitler pro-war, you know, being a little like very, very slowly easing up on the drug war, like very like very little, you know, change one way or another in that middle row. Right. But obviously, you know, you could say that middle row is, you know, where the Christian conservatives are, where the banker Democrats are. That's like where that middle row is, kind of where our politics has been, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the bottom row, you would have libertarian left and libertarian right. So, you know, you have like some libertarians. There's still a debate in the Libertarian Party I watched during the last election, which I thought it was mind blowing, because they thought Gary Johnson was too left because he agrees that there should be some public school, like just like a little bit of public school. There was libertarians who couldn't believe that, like there should be no, you know, a lot of libertarians don't believe there should be any public school, right?
I'm surprised that he thought that. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Well, he was, for a libertarian, he was actually pretty moderate, which is why I think he, out of everybody, became the most mainstream out of all like the third party candidates. But he just, his problem was his short fuse and his personality. He had just had no patience for the media. And, you know, unfortunately, you got to be somebody who knows how to do interviews if you're going to run for president.
You know where Aleppo, what Aleppo is?
Yeah. And then he got frustrated. You know, you can't. So
where would you put Joe in that not Joe Biden, Joe Jorgensen, and on your
Joe Jorgensen. See, what's weird about her, man, I haven't paid attention to her since like a year or so ago, but she seemed more strict on the core libertarian beliefs than even Gary Johnson was. But I think, again, with libertarians, what the appeal always is just like people feeling like that the establishment Democrat or establishment Republican isn't servicing them. And so really it could be any third party candidate, right? The Green Party is the least popular, but if Jill Stein happened to have more traction than Gary Johnson, then the third party, I feel like a lot of times it's the reason why Trump became president the last time, is because people just feel like anything that's different is better, you know, and that's where, you know, the headspace has been. Regarding Joe Biden right now, I know that I'm seeing a lot of like hardcore lefty people online that are like, you know, getting on the guy's case, but I'm like, I feel like he's doing, at least saying stuff. I mean, I don't know. I know it takes a while to get something passed, but you know, fully wanting to decriminalize marijuana. He seems like a few things that he's trying to do would kind of right the wrongs of his 94 crime bill in terms of, you know, waiving a lot of felonies that people have for life just for having drugs, you know? And so I'm like, well, that was, in my opinion, the crime bill was his biggest sin, right? So if he rights that wrong, well, I'm like, that's him, you know, putting things in the right direction. You know, you can't turn back the hands of time, right? So there's some people whose lives are kind of ruined, and it is what it is, but at least you can do what you can do now that you're in that position of power. I told you this, you know, during the campaign trail, you know, when he said that he was going to do a public option, you know, I was like, okay, if he really does this, like, and tries to push this forward, like, I'm going to be behind him. And to me, he's been definitely, at least the things that he talks about, he's been more left now than he was, you know, 4 years ago, even during the Obama administration. So, I mean, I can't really be mad at the guy, you know, based on what he's talking about. But, you know, I know a lot of people, because I don't know like the political machine as well as some people do, right? How fast something should go or could go. But I know that a lot of people are even getting on Bernie now, because it's like Bernie's now in the, what is he, the chairman of the Treasury of the Senate or something like that. Like he wields a lot of power now, and there's a Democratic majority. So it's like, hey, Bernie, hey, AOC, all this stuff you guys talked about, if there's ever going to be a big change in healthcare or any of these other things, why aren't you guys doing it now? Why aren't you guys pushing it now? And so I see a lot of people getting more on their case, especially from the hard left, than even Biden, because people on the hard left never expected Biden or Kamala to really be about any of that stuff anyway. But it's more, you know, AOC and Bernie, this has been their kind of like staple, right? This has been their whole thing. And, you know, they seem to be kind of not going as hard in that direction. I don't know if it's because there's more things behind the scenes than they almost don't want to like spoil it or give too much insight that could damage the cause, or if it's just, you know, having a career in politics, unfortunately, you know, if that's your career, you don't want to, you know, tarnish your career, right? If you know that, you know, the slow ride is the more consistent ride, then maybe the slow ride is the ride you take. So I don't know. It's been it's really hard to kind of get a grasp on today's politics overall. And that's kind of where I'm at, is that I feel like like things have gotten so divided, and nobody wants to be understanding of the other side. Nobody wants to, you know, give a chance. And just the whole again, I have more left people on social media, right? So I only see I have some right people, I have some QAnon people, believe it or not, on my Facebook. But it's definitely more left people. And like this, anytime like a right-wing person says anything, it's automatically like, we need to cancel this person, we need to get this person out of here. And it's like, you know, there's going to be conservatives in this country, and there's going to be liberals. I don't want to just live in one or the other. You know, there needs to be, in my opinion, you know, you have conservatives that can kind of check the balances, keep things, you know, in line, and you have the liberals to be the visionaries, and they should work together. Unfortunately, it hasn't been that way, but it's kind of like running a company or something. You know, Steve Jobs is a visionary, but if he just got to run free and didn't have somebody kind of checking what he was trying to do all the time, you know, we may not have iPhones today, right? I mean, so it's you got to have both.
Yeah, he got fired, remember, from his own company.
He did, yeah, he did get fired from his own company.
I mean, like, I think that, you know, with somebody like AOC, I think that her being young and her being a new, you know, senator or whatever she is, she has to learn. You know, when you get in there, you have to learn that, okay, things don't move this fast. This is how things work. This is what you can tell people that they can expect. Like, I think even with Obama, he thought that he could do a lot more than he could do. And then once he got in there, he realized, oh, this is how this works. There's only so much I can do. And so I think that AOC is running into that same issue. But when you have someone like Bernie Sanders, who's been in politics for like 50 years, he should know what he can tell people and how much he can actually get done. And so he should be held more accountable. It's like, okay, we have this whole Democrats run everything now.
Yeah.
So you would think, okay, you should be moving these things forward. Why aren't you?
Right.
You said you do such and such. There's no real resistance now that can be levied against you. So why isn't this being done? You know, but I'm sure he'll find an excuse. You know, he seems like more of a talker, in my opinion, than an actual person that gets things done. You know.
Well, yeah, I mean, because I don't know how deep you are into like watching these political podcasts and stuff, but there's one called Boiling Point, one of them. It's got Crystal Ball and Sagar something. Sagar's supposed to represent the right. She definitely represents the hard left in it. It's an interesting show. They have an interesting dynamic in the stuff that they cover. Pretty unbiased from what I can see, you know. But she had Bernie on, and she was really throwing some hard balls at him, like, hey, what's going on? Why aren't you doing this? Why, you know, what's going on with this bill? There's things in this bill that, you know, aren't good. Something about like the big infrastructure bill. There's a lot of shit in there about privatizing the construction work or something that she wasn't happy with, and a lot of people on the left weren't happy with. And Bernie really like I haven't seen him be like you know, just trying to not engage like this really ever. And he was just like, he's like, look, you know, because I don't think he expected her to be as knowledgeable about the bill. And he was like, you could tell he was getting shocked by all the things she knew about it. And he's like, look, I don't like the privatization. I don't like the privatization, but you know, you got to make compromise. And all of a sudden he's the guy of compromise, right? He's
he works best when he's the outsider, you know, when he's fighting for someone. Like once the revolution is over, you know, he doesn't know what to do, you know. So he's like the leader, he's like the Che Guevara and everything. But once the big guys are overthrown and now you're in power, you know, like once Farmer John has been thrown out and now the animals are in charge, he doesn't really know what to do at that point, how to really accomplish what he was saying he was going to do.
Well, do you even want to? I mean, that's where I started thinking is like, once you get a taste of that power, like you know, I mean, we're all human at the end of the day, and that's where I'm at with it. Like, I remember when AOC first came in, she was talking about all the what are they called, the people that try to I call it bribes, but it's legal. It's you know what I'm talking about, lobbyists. And she was talking about, like, I wasn't expecting, like, how many lobbyists are constantly coming at you, constantly trying to make deals with you, and how seductive it is. She said this in the beginning, right? She hasn't said anything about this since then, but I'm sure it is, right? I mean, how, like, there's people whose career it is to just constantly try to make these bargains with you and these deals with you, and they're probably really good at it, right? They're so yeah, I mean, it's only so long until you get compromised with that, and like, then what do you do?
Animal farm, right?
Yeah,
it's like that, you know, like once the pigs actually get in charge, like they were fighting for all this freedom, and you know, we're gonna run the farm and it's gonna be all about us, and then they got in charge and they became, you know, what they overthrew, you know. So I think it pretty much always ends up like that. If you look at all the communist revolutions where they overthrow all the oligarchs and the dictators, and then they basically just take the place of those. I think that's how societies basically work. It can't just be, you know, a socialist utopia where everybody gets what they're supposed to get and everybody just shares everything. There's always going to be some people at the top that have a whole bunch of power. You know?
And that's why, and that's the one thing where I've pretty much become more, I guess, on the right with, of like understanding, the more you centralize power, which is kind of like whether it's universal health care or any of these kind of more federalized things, the more you're centralizing that power. And if somebody bad, whether you know, you think Trump is bad or Biden is bad or whoever you really don't like as a politician, that means they have more control over your life, right? So I
don't even think it doesn't necessarily have to be about being bad. It's just like, if that person's in charge, you know, eventually that person's not you, so they're gonna want something that you don't want, and you know, they're the one with the power. So it's always going to be like that, you know, because people aren't perfect. If there's like some perfect person that could have like a benevolent dictatorship, then that would be good. But that's not it's not realistic, you know.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, like, in the monarchy days, like, if you just grew up and like you never had any, like, if you were obviously a normal person, right, you were outside the royal family, if you never had any expectation of gaining power or really exceeding your class level, like, is there maybe some peace in that? Like, just not feeling like you have to, because we are the opposite, right? We're like, at least me, like, it's more and more achieving a higher level. Like, nothing's good enough, right? There's nothing, like, I have like that full, like, just, I don't know when that appetite could stop for me, right? So, and I feel like that's a very American thing of just becoming like, we killed the king, so now we can all become kings.
Yes. So if you live in a society where there's no chance of upward mobility, and you're just a noble or a serf or whatever, then it's like, yeah, you know, okay, that I'm always going to be a servant, and this is all that I can do, because that's how the world works. You know, but when there's a way to move up, then that's what changes things. You know, people feel a certain way.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I think about too, like, I feel like it's, and I know that there's more to this, and I'm just kind of probably touching the surface. And again, when I go over this, I want to make sure I'm being very careful and being very understanding about exactly what it was. So, like, you know, I talk about FDR a lot. You know, I'm pretty much a big fan of FDR, and a lot of people on the left are. And for a big portion of people, things were really good during those days, right? You could drop out of high school, get a job at a factory, make enough money to have a nice house in the suburbs, support your support like a 4-person family, get a new car. A lot of people had summer homes. You know, this was a very average thing. It wasn't like an uncommon thing for a lot of people. And then fast forward, right? And, you know, looking back, that, you know, it was kind of like a white man thing, right? For the most part, it was like, so there was so many groups of people especially women. I mean, women just didn't have any type of rights at all, pretty much at that point. So it's like I've been thinking lately, like, is that the only way that was able to work because they didn't have to supply this lifestyle for so many people? Or was it just like that would always work if, you know, things were just, you know, you had more regulations like you did then, control tax rates and, you know, on the rich, and just basically, you know, I feel like companies, private companies back then, they really had to answer to like the quote unquote American dream. Like your employees need to be able to like make this much money. Like the care for your employees has to be there, where that doesn't seem like it's the case anymore.
Well, I mean, I would say if, so we're talking about like the 40s, the 50s.
Yeah.
Like I would say if you take those people, those same people who had all that stuff back then, and you let them see what life is like for us today, I think that they would probably still want to live like we lived, like, because we still have a higher quality of life, you know, with all our TVs and internet and, you know, gig economy. People are making money off of doing podcasts, millions of dollars. You know, like that stuff didn't exist back then. Like their lives were harder. People were dying of like polio and stuff like that. So I mean, I think that there is this school of thought where our parents had better lives than we do. But talking to my parents and other older people, it's like, no, there are way more opportunities and quality of life things that are better for us these days. We just kind of complain about it because this is the only thing that we've ever known. We don't know it of it. We can idealize better things, but I think if you look at it objectively, that we have it better than people did, you know, 50, 60 years ago, you know, like.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of things like that. And you know, you're especially, you know, the people fantasized about the future at that point in time. So they may trade it off, but I feel like the value of the dollar, because, and it could be kind of because of the gig economy, right? If you can hire somebody to not be an official, you know, employee, and they're just like a 1099 person, you don't have to pay them healthcare, you don't have to do this and that.
Right.
Well, that's going to be lucrative as an employer, right? I mean, it's not, you know, and I feel like once the genie's out of the bottle, it's kind of like the union thing. Like I live in Michigan. I don't know how the union laws are in Maryland, but in Michigan for a long time, if you worked for a big company, I mean, once upon a time, almost everybody was in a union. By the time I got in the workforce, that got minimized and minimized and minimized. And I worked at this hospital, you know, about 10 years ago or so. And like, as I was coming in, it was right after the like latest generation of employees were deunionized. Basically, Rick Schneider passed a law, the right to work. it always sounds good, right? The right to work.
Good phrasing, you know?
Yeah. So basically gave you the right to not be in a union. And right after that happened, wages started to drop. And then even getting a full-time, like I got one of the last full-time positions there, and everybody else that came after me, part-time or as contingent, as they called it, contingent, they didn't have to pay for any benefits at all. Didn't have to guarantee any hours. So it was like it was good for like if you're a college kid or something, but if you're like, you know, trying to be an adult and stuff, that was not a good look. And as time went on, I mean, it got worse and worse and worse for somebody working there. So like that kind of thing, you know, I feel like there definitely should be worker protections. I think that the union at this point should be allowed in certain circumstances. There's got to be, and this is the thing, kind of what I was talking about in the beginning, right? About trying to find common ground, trying to have like, you know, let's try to be realistic. Let's try to say, okay, this isn't working. Because one of the things, you know, the whole thing about the police, right? Another hot button issue these days, either defund the police or, you know, what are you going to do kind of thing with the police. And to me, the issue with them is the union. The union, to me, is the root cause of them more than anything, right? I mean, the funding, you know, these cops make like $30,000 a year really at base level, right? These aren't like high paying jobs. So I don't know how much they're funded in the first place. But the union mindset, which if you're a collective workforce working against a corporation and you're standing together to be like a team and fight against your corporate overlords, like that's one thing, right? But we're the corporate overlords in this scenario. The people are, right? Because we're paying, it's the taxpayer that's paying these things.
Yeah,
so that's not a good position to have the union against the taxpayers, right?
I think it's different, you know, because you were talking about unions for private companies, like that's one thing. But then when you have like the police, these guys are public servants, you know, they're the government basically. So I think it's different when you have the government doing it. Like if you have a company and you choose not to take care of your employees in a certain way, there's always another company that will, just like with because Ford, that's Detroit, right?
Yep.
Yeah, obviously. So from what I read about with Henry Ford, like he paid his employees enough to have a car and stuff like that.
That was the idea, yeah.
He did like the 40-hour work week. Like the government wasn't making him do that. He just knew that, okay, if I make my company a good company to work for, more people will come work here. If I give them this much money, then they can buy the cars. If they buy my cars, there'll be more cars on the road. People will see these cars and want them. And so the free market he used the free market and the competition to work to his advantage. But in a police situation, it doesn't really work that way because this is the government, you know.
Yeah.
So I think it depends. Like in private situations, I think that, you know, if you have the freedom there as an employer to hire your own people and pay them as much as you want to pay them, then that works because there's always another company. If McDonald's doesn't want to pay me a certain thing, but Burger King does, I can always go work for Burger King. But with the police, it's kind of different. You have one police force for whatever municipality, and you know.
Yeah. Well, I think the difference is that if you work, this is again, I don't live in Maryland. I've only really lived in Michigan and California, which again are two really different places to live. But I didn't learn enough about California. I feel like I just ramble on. I apologize for it, but I'm drinking a little bit. I'm smoking cigars.
We're doing that, you know.
But absolutely, man. What I was gonna say though, like here, what tends to happen, so Detroit, you know, is the stereotype bad city. It's honestly, it pisses me off when I still see these stats to this day. Detroit is the worst city in America. It's not the worst city in America. Detroit's come a long way, and it kind of pisses me off that we still have that reputation, but fine, whatever. So what typically happens when someone is going the trajectory to become a cop here, they go to be a cop in Detroit first because, you know, the lush jobs in the suburbs are all filled, right? So you got to earn your stripes in the hood and kind of stuff like that. Now that again is part of the problem because you have people who grew up in bumfuck, you know, wherever in the countryside, and they've never interacted with the city or black people or really have seen anybody that looks different than them, especially in mass, right? Because the more rural you get, there's not even a lot of people in your town anyway. So you're just not dealing with as much interaction with anybody, and then sending them from there directly down to the city, you're gonna have problems, right? So that's problem number one. But it seems that everybody who wants to become a cop has to kind of start in the inner cities, and then, you know, when they can get a job in the suburbs, a more cushy job, that's kind of their trajectory. So it pays more, you know, if you're working in a city that has more funding because more wealthier people live there, as a government employee, you're going to make more money. It's kind of no different than public schools, right? Even though they're not private, everyone would agree going to a private school is better in terms of the education. But public schools, if you go to a public school in a nice city, then it could be almost comparable to some private schools, right? Depending on how nice that city is, how much, you know, tax funding is funding that school. So that all that plays a part into it. So I feel like that's their trajectory. In terms of the Ford thing, so this again kind of goes back to this time era of, you know, the FDR thing. I honestly, you know, and I know we may disagree with this, but I feel like we were more socialistic in that time period. And then not saying that that's always how America was meant to be, because it's really only the small window, right? Before that, especially in the 1800s, it was like the Wild West, right? It was as deregulated and as crazy as it could get. And then when the Industrial Revolution happens, especially, you know, after Civil War, all that kind of things, the you know, the centralization of government seemed to happen more, and just, you know, factories, all this innovation, all this kind of stuff. And so I feel like it would be looked down upon, like Henry Ford, if you didn't, one, pay your employees well. The unions were, even if the people weren't unions right away, unions were becoming pretty pretty common. But also the idea of, yes, I'm going to pay. It's silly if an employee of mine cannot afford a product that they're making, but that's kind of a socialist idea. Like, you have ownership over what you're creating, and it's kind of your product. It's your product as much as it's the CEO's product. So I feel like that those kind of ideas were there. The issue, though, and this is what I want your take on, is I feel like we had a lot more nationalism at that point in time. Henry Ford also, unfortunately, is kind of a little too close with Hitler, you know, than he should have been. He's definitely got some skeletons in his closet there and all that kind of stuff. So another thing that I've been pondering on, kind of what I was talked about, you know, life being pretty good for certain people in that time period. Can you have nationalism? Does nationalism have to be tied in with white supremacy, or can, like, we all be nationalist regardless of, like, making it a race thing? You know what I'm saying? Like, because I feel like if we can have, I feel like right now, I'm gonna go off a little bit, but I'm gonna bring it back. So, like, the Olympics, right, is kind of another big thing, and you know, me and you both probably, like, reacted negatively about the Simone Biles thing at first. After hearing more about it, I'm like, you know, she's definitely has the right to do whatever she wants to do. But I feel like even before that, like, it seemed like all these different things going on with the Olympics in the US, like, even the US isn't rooting for them, and they don't seem like that one girl, whoever, I forgot her name, but she was like refused to post the American flag or something like that. And it's like, I get that, like, in day-to-day life, you don't want to be, like, patriotic or nationalistic, but if there's any time to be that way, it's the Olympics. That's where we're supposed to all be united against the rest of the world. So if we can't even be that for that, like, I don't know what's left holding us together anymore. We have to have something. We have to have some type of common cloth that like we have, right? We have to have some type of shared thing. So, like, I feel like, yeah, obviously too much nationalism is a bad thing, but if you have none, do you have a country? What are we doing? Like, how do we stay united, you know? So I feel like we need some nationalism.
Yeah, I mean, I think on paper, what you're saying makes sense. But yeah, there should be some nationalism on paper, and we all have, like, some type of patriotic pride toward our country and everything. But I think that the word nationalism has such negative connotations on it now. They have to find a new word, you know.
Yeah,
patriotism is a good one. But now, yeah, you know, like in the Black community, you know, it's become so much of a thing now that if you are patriotic as a Black person, a lot of people kind of, you know, put you to this. You're not really Black, you know, because you love this country and stuff like that. You're automatically a Republican. You love white supremacy now because you love America. You know, yeah, I think that's problematic to some extent. But there's obviously reasons behind that. There's reasons.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And how do you we talked about the critical race theory thing, right? And again, I still don't know enough about it, as much as I've tried to dig into it. What I've heard that I agree with, if it is true, about, like, hey, you know, the Tulsa, Oklahoma thing, you know, that shit should be known about. You know, the FBI having some shady involvement with the MLK assassination and all this kind of shit that's went down. Like, yeah, people absolutely need to know about this, you know, so this is part of the history. But I understand the conflict of it, because if you're always speaking negatively about the country, then again, it kind of, like, how do we there's got to be things that we say, there's got to be a step forward, right? Okay, these things were bad.
Yes.
But the forefathers had some good ideas. I hope that we all can agree with that. Even if a lot of them were scumbags, like Thomas Jefferson. The more I learned about him, this guy was a fucking terrible person. But, you know, it's like the ideas of everybody's created equal. We all have a right to happiness, and these are good ideas. These are solid things that we can all kind of like strive for and say, hey, at the time when everybody was ruled by a monarchy, the idea of anybody being equal was insane. Like this was something that just was not talked about. So even if it was said by people who literally own slaves, which again is like it's just it sucks, right? It's like, how can you write this down while this is happening? I mean, I know unfortunately how they could do it, because they didn't actually understand what they were saying when they said equality. They thought it was equality of people who looked like them, basically, but it doesn't matter. I mean, the saying is there, right? We all, and I guess that's where I'm at with it, is just like, let's make sure we don't just gloss over some bad shit that's happened, but let's try to make it not happen in vain. I guess let's try to say, okay, all these things, as terrible as as the road has been, there has been I feel like, a thread of improvement, right? A thread of progress.
So at the end of the day, I think that what both sides are kind of missing is that there needs to be some balance. Should we talk about Tulsa and terrible racial things that have been, exhibited on Black people and other minorities throughout American history? Yes, but we should also talk about the good ideals that you mentioned. There were founding fathers that had terrible things, and there were also founding fathers that had good things about them. Like there have been white people that have died for the opportunities for Black people to have freedom this whole time. Just like there have been white people that have been lynching Black people, there have been white people that have been protecting Black people.
White people who died in the name of desegregation.
So we should tell the truth, basically. So we should know that these terrible things did happen, but these great things did also happen. America is still a great place to live, pretty much no matter who you are, but there are these flaws in America. So we should be truthful about, who people were as a whole person, whoever the people that we deify, you know, I'm sure George Washington had some problematic things about him. He was a man at the time, but he also had some great things. You can still look up to, you know, founding fathers and stuff like that, and then you can still acknowledge that bad things happen. So I think both sides need to come together, per se, which sounds, you know, very cliche, come together in that aspect and realize, that for all of America's flaws, America is still a great place to live. You can still be proud to be an American and still acknowledge that America is not perfect. It's just like with your parents. If you have my parents are wonderful, but they're still human beings. They had flaws. They've done things that they shouldn't have done when they were raising us. But overall, they were great parents. I still respect them. I still look up to them. So I still value them. So I think that it should be more like that, you know. And then, like you said, if we're at the Olympics and we're representing America, you know, all that home family business, we can talk about that business back home. But right now, you know, it's about these guys are the enemy. You know, it's just like you have siblings, right? Yeah, so it's like you can have beef with your big brother, your little sister, whatever. But if there's something going on outside the house, we're going to unite and we're going to be the same team and we're going to love each other. And then we can get back and fight about whatever problems that we have later. Right now, it's time for us to be a team because we are family.
Yeah, you know? It's no different than like when you even outside of family, even close friends, you guys are going to butt heads. If anybody who's had a best friend, if you haven't had your serious like beefs and ups and downs, like that's not a best friend. Like my best friends I've had like just crazy issues with, you know, over time. But when it comes down to it, it's always been like, okay, if someone's, you know, fucking with you, then they got to fuck with me first, kind of thing. Like, so yeah, no, it's 100% like that. And that's my thing right now is I just like, we got to have like a commonality. We have to somehow come back to that. I don't know how. I mean, I hope that, I feel like a lot of people, I feel like whether it's Black people, gay people, all these like subcategories, which again, I talked about in my last podcast. I feel like the subcategoryism has been part of this problem, but I feel like the majority of people, like even some of the most like what's a way to put this, like some like black people who are like super deep in BLM and like anti-white supremacy, like they have some white friends, you know what I'm saying? Like people are, because we're social creatures, we cannot, no matter how much we want to stop that or try to stop that, we love communication, we love friendship, we love just, you know, and I think the curiosity too of other perspective, as much as that does seem to be silenced or trying to be stomped out right now, I feel like it's like, oh, this person seems like they think different. Like I'm curious on their perspective. I think that's just built into us. So I think there's a lot of people who try to put on the surface that they don't do that. But I'll use this example. So I have this cousin on my Facebook, and she posts the, like, you know, run of the mill extreme leftist stuff. Like if you let your daughter, I'm just trying to, like, I'm gonna butcher something, but just kind of give it, like, if you ever questioned your daughter's choices, what to do with her own body, then you are the same as a rapist. Like saying that to somebody's dad, right? But in person, she never says this shit, right? She's never like that around actual humans. It's a social media thing. So people have this, like, people put out there what they think they should be putting out there. But I feel like 9 times out of 10, we don't even feel like that. We just feel like we're kind of like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to say, so I'm going to pass it along.
Yeah. And the social media world I'm learning that the social media world is a lot different than the real world. Like people, like you said, people, they get along a lot better in real time with real other people. You know, like those people, like you said, that are very stuck in their ways on their leftist stuff. If you put them in the same room with someone that might be further to right, and they can actually sit down and talk face to face in person, a lot of times they can find, you know, a lot of common ground.
Yeah.
Like I grew up in, like, you know, a very church type of household, and like we went to like black church, and I thought that a lot of things that we do in black church was just a black thing, you know, and it was very much like this, and this is what we do. But when you go to like white Baptist church, it's very similar. Like the way they shout, the way that they harmonize, the way they sing songs, the way they conduct their service, it's very, very similar, to the point that you would think that they were acting black per se, but it's just the fact that, you know, it's more of a regional thing, you know, and so you could like go to this white family's house, and they could be doing the same things that you thought that was all black things. And it's like, no, this is a Southern.
The regional thing definitely has a lot to do with it. It's funny you said that, because I just thought of a memory. So like, randomly, my stepmom, had to be around the time I was like in middle school, maybe early high school, like only a couple of years or something. My stepmom like randomly got into this wave of Christianity, or like wanting to make the family Christian. My dad, by the way, is like a militant atheist. We've probably talked about this before, even to this day, which I'm kind of surprised about. I'll talk about that in a second. But so she went through this wave where she was like, you know, I want to get everybody baptized, like all this stuff. I don't know what caused this, or like, because like before that and after that, never any mention of church. But I don't remember. I don't know if it was, I think like her sister died really young, and maybe that caused it. I don't remember. But anyway, so she's like talking to me, like, all right, like I'm going to start taking the whole family to church. Like we're all going to start going. And I go, okay, I'll go, but I want to go to a black church, because those look fun. And we didn't end up going to a church, to say the least. But yeah, no, that's one of those things that they always, if you're gonna go, like, yeah, I mean, definitely have fun while you do it. But yeah, my dad, like, he's just like, and I've become way more well, not even now, like I feel like even a few years ago I've become more accepting of religion, but he's just like, he's just really an asshole about it. And like I have to talk to him now and like, look, I understand that, you know, you have these really negative opinions about it, and but if people truly believe in this, and number one, it is helping people get through this life, then just, you know, let them be. Don't, you know, you don't have to be like that. I don't know if I might have told you the story, I'm not sure, but because again, back to the curious about other people's perspective thing, and growing up with a dad who not only a devout atheist, but very like he used to be an extreme like militant Democrat. Like we've kind of talked about this. Like this guy was like not playing games. Like he might as well have been like Fidel Castro or something. I don't know. Like he was just like it's funny because I kind of I gotta do a callback to the CRT thing, right? Like if CRT really is like talking about bringing up these kind of ills of American past, like to me that was just a normal thing for my childhood. So it was just like it was just, you know, like, so it's funny that if it is really just bringing that stuff up, then that was just normal for me. So I grew up with that kind of stuff. But anyway, you know, fast forward to when I was working that hospital job, I would smoke cigarettes on the porch, you know, and because I didn't work till noon. And so in the morning, you know, I'd go out and have my morning cigarette. So, you know, do you guys have Jehovah's Witnesses in Maryland?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, because I know that. Well, I think it might be more of a West Coast, East Coast thing, but you know, Mormons are more on the West Coast, Jehovah's Witnesses are more on the East Coast. But anyway, so you know, the Jehovah's Witnesses are making their rounds and stuff like that. I'm outside smoking a cigarette, and I'm getting really into understanding people who are religious, like their perspective. Like I'm truly curious on it and why people, you know, coming from myself, who at the time I was a devout atheist as well. Like you couldn't tell me any different. And so this, you know, these two people, you know, they walk husband and wife, they typically walk together. This guy approaches me. He's got to be like at the oldest, his early 30s, maybe even late 20s. I mean, he really wasn't that old. So already the age gap, I'm in my early 20s. So it's already someone younger you can kind of relate to a little bit. And my whole thing was, you know, one thing that has always been negative to me about religion is the hypocrisy, right? Like, oh, you know, you say this, and you know, you're against abortion, but you don't mind, you know, killing a bunch of people in the Middle East, and all this kind of stereotypical hypocrisy points, right? So anyway, this guy starts talking to me, and you could tell these people are used to people slamming doors in their face, telling them off. So he's not even expecting me to engage him in conversation. So that's already funny, right? So he hands me the pamphlet. He's like, have you heard the word of I don't even know if they say Jesus, but whatever.
Jehovah?
Have you heard the word of Jehovah or something coming to save whatever? And I go, no, I'm not. I don't know that much, but I go, you know, and he goes to try to talk to me, and I go, well, can I ask you some questions? You know, like, why do you believe the things? I thought you had a joint for a second, but
not today.
Not today. But so I go, can I ask you some questions? And he's like, yeah. And I go, is it true that you guys don't get blood transfusions? And he goes, yeah. And I go, why? And he goes, well, let me show you this passage in the Bible. And he shows me a passage in the Bible where it says, man shall not take, you know, blood from another animal or something. So, and every question I'm asking him, he has a passage in the Bible. So it's not that like what I learned from that is it's not that Jehovah's Witnesses are quote unquote crazy or whatever negative connotation you want to give them. It's just that they're actually following the Bible when nobody else actually is. And so because of that, even Christians look down on them and stuff like that, but they're actually following it. And that's why that's, you know, them knocking on the doors. That's them spreading the word. That's when, you know, the whole thing. So that experience completely like opened my mind and was like, okay, like this is a good person. I can tell this is a good person. He's doing what he feels is right. He literally, like, I had no comebacks or anything. I mean, I was like, oh shit, like you're literally doing what you're reading, and I have nothing I can come back on that. So unfortunately though, my dad found out about this because I'm living with my dad at the time, right? And he immediately was really pissed off. He's like, you give them a cookie, they'll never stop. Like he was really pissed off. And so this guy, you know, again, because their goal is to convert you, right? I mean, that's what their goal is. I told him, I was honest with him. I was like, look, I'm an atheist. I'm just gonna set up real expectations. I want you giving your hopes up. You're not gonna convert me, but I enjoyed the conversation. But unfortunately, probably because I gave him, you know, engagement that gave him false hope. So he started coming around more, and you know, I worked a weird schedule, so I wasn't there. And this poor guy comes knocking on the door, and he, you know, my dad answers. My dad thinks he's like one of my friends or something at first, even though it's got a suit and tie on or something. He's like, yeah, Tony's at work right now. And the guy hands my dad one of those Watchtower pamphlet things. My dad loses his shit on this guy, like went ham on this guy, like, you get the fuck off my porch, like just like went crazy on the poor guy. And like I came home, my stepmom was like, your Jehovah's Witness friend, I don't think we'll be coming back anytime soon. But yeah, no, that's my dad. But so it's, yeah, I've had a weird, now that I've become an adult, and especially, you know, you have a good page of having people from all over the country, really. I mean, all these people from different experiences. And you know, just growing up, I've realized that like my situation was different than, you know, the stereotypical other people's situation. So it's interesting how, like, you know, you think of conservatives being the non-open-minded people, but I've had it from like the opposite side.
It's definitely on both sides. I think that's the root of most of the problems that we're talking about. A lot of people are closed-minded, and they can't just sit down and talk to other people. You know, it's kind of, I think that's kind of what Joyner Lucas was going for. I don't think that he executed it the way he wanted it to.
Oh, the I'm not racist thing?
Yeah, like that's what he was going for. I think that, you know, the way he did it didn't really work out that way. He could have thought it. I think when you're doing a song, you know, you only have,
yeah, that's the problem. So and you got to pull at the heartstrings. I mean, like you can't, like, even though a real conversation between a white and a black person wouldn't go like that, you have to almost say the extremes from both sides to get the cinematic approach. So I knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And again, what I understood about him, and I'm not black and white. I'm, you know, my mixed experience is Jewish and Italian, and also kind of being racially ambiguous. So, you know, having my unique experiences because of that, you know, just be honest, you know. But what I think he feels, and a lot of mixed kids feel, is that you don't really belong to a certain side. So even though
I didn't know he was mixed. I thought he was just black.
No, he's his mom's white.
I was like, that's why him and Logic are kind of the same, huh?
I mean, Logic's hard to pass as black, but yes.
Yeah. So I think that's the reason why a lot of their opinions get kind of pushed to the side, because like you said, like that's a unique experience. Like growing up in a home with a black parent and a white parent, you're like, your mind is going to be on such a different level than most people, because most of us, either we got two white parents or two black parents, and we have like a more, you know, a consistent experience on both sides. Like a lot of people that I met in the Marines, they had never even saw a black person before they were grown before they met a black person in real life. So that kind of changes who you are and what your expectations are going to be. But yeah, when you got both sides and you have a whole white side of your family and a whole black side, then your perspective is going to be like alien to most people, you know, because their stuff is totally the opposite, you know.
Yeah, so. Well, absolutely. When people only I mean, it's one of those things where I'm glad that I had the experience I have, because I feel like it helps me try to find bridges with people, and I'm sure he's the same way. And right now for us, and again, I'm not black and white, so I'm not trying to say that I have the same exact experience. I feel like there's commonalities with my experience, is that like even though, again, you know, I did not get treated as negatively in society as someone who's black, but I've still had my experiences where like here's kind of an example. So like I use this, I talk about this in Michigan. We don't really have a big Spanish or Latin population. We have some, but it's not our big like population of, I guess, quote unquote brown people is Arabic people, right? So here people always thought I was Arabic my whole life, right? So the white kids would call me racial slurs about that, like a lot of the like, you know, the redneck kind of kids. So I had to deal with that, right? And then when people found out I was Jewish, that'd be a whole nother like series of things. So I didn't really get to fully experience just like being white really because of that, because if the white people are treating you like that, then it's not, I feel like you're not really you're not really in the club, right? And then when I lived in California, because it's a Spanish population, everybody thought I was Latin or Spanish. So it's like, you know, I use these examples as like, I'm not, and again, not like I'm trying to, this is my cross that I'm carrying or anything, but I personally haven't had that, like, just, you know, blonde hair, blue eyed, you know, stereotypical white person experience. And because of that, though, I feel like it's made me feel like more, you know, able to see multiple sides of things and just see where different people are coming from. And I feel like Joyner's like that. Logic is probably like that, and some of these other people, because, you know, if you just grow up, and I remember as a kid too, like I wished I just had like just a stereotypical whatever it was, just like whether it was just I was just Jewish and my dad wasn't Italian, just blonde hair, blue eye, just something just you can easily fit in a box, and it is just like this is who you are. And when you're not like that in today's world where everything is getting like subcategorized, and it's like, you know, what I kind of feel like is happening, I'm sure you see it too, is like this it seems like self-segregation. Like it's like people trying to segregate, and like, but because it's them volunteering to do it, it's okay, right? It's not society. So society, some government rules aren't making them do it, which is obviously worse if the government's making them do it. But it's still like, hey, this is not really a cool thing. Like, what are we doing here? And you know, someone like myself, I feel like, do I have a home? You know, where do I go? Like where do I belong? Where do I fit? And luckily I'm not a child growing up in this anymore, but you know, so I've developed my own identity. But it's like, if you're a kid and you don't really fit into these perfect squares, like that kind of sucks. It's got to like not be a fun time right now.
I think, I think that's where how a lot of the biracial people, they get kind of, you know, categorized, and they get kind of as an outcast. Because if you really think about it, it seems like people's natural impulse is to segregate themselves in some way. Like before, like, you know, we had tribes, and then we had like all these different type of, we would separate ourselves we created the concept of race. And then we came to the point where, okay, this is bad, let's stop doing that. But the more you see it, like when you put people in jail, somehow they all get segregated by race, somehow they all click up together. And it seems like if you put people in one space, they kind of gravitate toward people that are most like them. So it seems like a natural thing, for better or worse. But then when you have someone that's like multiracial and comes from all these different backgrounds, like you said, they don't have a real home or a real place where they can really kind of fit into.
It's not easy to just do that. But that's interesting, because I watched this mini prison documentary thing. It was this white guy, skinhead, right? He had all these like Nazi tattoos and shit. And they were interviewing him and like trying to get insight on the whole thing. And he's like, I'm actually not even racist. Like, I didn't have any of these tattoos before prison. But it's just like, when you go into prison, you don't have a choice. Like, it's like, do you want to be alive? Okay, well then you gotta just unfortunately find the people who look like you and just go there. And like, you know, that sucks. Like, that has to suck. Like, that's just like, that's not a good time.
You gotta pick a side, and it's like, so you have to pick a side, and then the other side is your enemy, even though that's who you are. And it's like, so I mean, but I think that it's a human nature thing that we have to deal with. I think no matter what, people are going to kind of segregate themselves into, I think we should fight it, you know, as much as we can, but it seems like that's kind of a natural type of thing, you know. Like I remember, when I would join, like when I would do different units in the Marine Corps, you know, sometimes there'd be like maybe 2 or 3 Black people in a unit, and of course, or 2 or 3 Asian people, and they would all kind of congregate together, because it makes sense to an extent. It's like, well, these guys are going to know some things already that I don't have to tell them about. We have common experiences. I'm going to click up with these guys, and you know, that's just going to be how it is. You know, so I think it's okay to an extent.
That's how it was in the Army, though.
In the Marines, how it was with me. It was like people. I mean, it wasn't like prison where it's like, oh, I'm going to hang out with the Asians and that's it, and fuck everybody else. It would just be like, oh, all right, I don't know anybody here. there's some black guys over here. I'm sure I can go
Yeah.
start a conversation with them easier because we have common experiences. They might be from the same place where I'm from. I'm sure they heard the new DaBaby album. You know, we can talk about that. You know,
no, yeah. I mean, I guess I mean I get it, but it's just like that's a perfect example of like for me, that would suck. Like it would just be like I'd be like, fuck, dude. Like it's funny, like in California, I ended up hanging out with like my I mean, I was also in the battle rap circle too. So it's like my experience is not going to be like an easy one to try to duplicate, but I was in the battle rap world. And when I was out there, the people who just like I linked up first were Mexicans. Right. So that's just who I was clicking with. And in the battle rap scene, I was actually running with some Crips, which was just I mean, I was in some weird situations out there, but
you was looked out, you know.
What's funny about it though, because like again, Detroit, like growing up out here, we have such like a crazy reputation. This is one of the things that I feel like helps us if we go in like hoods in the around the country, because we have that reputation. Like people are more intimidated by us than like, you know, other people, even if like I myself, like I'm not that type of person, you know, but like when I was out there, like when I first moved out there, these people that I was roommates with, these were really like soft people, like just lived, you know, very nice lives and just like we're just the stereotypical like Santa Monica like kind of crowd, right? And like I get out there and they're thinking that I like escaped like a refugee camp or something. They're like, are you okay? Like how did you make it? Like they were talking to me like I swam from Cuba to Miami or something. Like it was like, dude, it's not like that crazy, you know, like it's not that bad. But anyway, so I at the time I was kind of in this phone hustle, which you know was you know, I'm not fully up to like, you know, it was kind of in some gray area. That's all I'm gonna say. And so because of that, I would meet some characters. And this one guy I met, like he was like a member of the fucking Vice Lords and shit.
Okay.
And I didn't know that, right? So and he didn't seem like that. He seemed like a very like he presented himself like just not that kind of person, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we start linking up and kind of, you know, doing the phone thing together. And he starts like slowly kind of telling me that like that's what he is, right? And I'm like, no, and I told him, I was like, no, I don't know, man. I don't know if I believe you, man. Like, and he's like, dude, and he like straight up was like, all right, well, I'm gonna take you through the hood, I'm gonna take you through Compton and all this kind of stuff. And he did. And I was like, and that's when I realized like, oh, maybe like where I'm from is really bad because Compton looks like my suburbs. Like it's like I was like, is this really Compton? And like everybody's lawn is manicured, the houses aren't falling apart. And he's like, yeah, just because, yeah, we like keeping our shit looking nice, but we're still some killers though. I was like, all right, well, fair enough. I mean, I'm not, you know, just because you're a killer doesn't mean you can't like, you know, want to keep your lawn looking nice. And but yeah, that's how it was. So I just wasn't intimidated out there at all because it just was not, everything just looked so nice and so pristine. And I don't know if you've been to California, but California itself is one of the most beautiful.
I was stationed there. When I said Camp Pendleton, that's in San Diego. You know?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you know how beautiful just the surroundings and everything. Like it's gorgeous.
I didn't get to go to like Compton but I was in like to LA and you know places like that. It was dope. San Diego, Carlsbad, those type of Oceanside, you know. So yeah, I don't know how far away that is from Santa Monica, but
yeah, I never got to go to San Diego. I always wanted to, but I've been everywhere else there. But yeah, no, that's so it's an interesting just getting out of your element and getting perspective and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure you've been around because of being stationed and all that kind of shit.
You see, you get to see how, like, when you're in one bubble and you just learn about other things from looking at it, you know, everything seems very different. But then once you really get closer to people and get to know them, like there was one time when I was in the Marines, I was out in Washington State, and I went to church with some of my Marine Corps friends. And I guess after church, this is around Thanksgiving, like the pastor said, "Hey, there's some Marines in the back, and they're away from home. They don't have any family out here. So I want all you families out there to go and adopt these Marines for Thanksgiving, take them out to and take them to your house and have Thanksgiving dinner."
Wow.
So yeah, like some like white family just like grabbed us up and they took us to their house, and we had Thanksgiving. They didn't know us at all. We had Thanksgiving dinner. We played board games, and it was like we were just part of their family. It was cool. Like
that's a beautiful thing, yeah.
And it didn't feel like we were outsiders or anything. Like it was like people in general are pretty much, you know, the same. We just have certain cultural differences and stuff like that. But you know, there's common ground that most people can find. People just want to have, you know, a decent life, you know, have enough food and clothing and shelter, have some fun, and yeah, everything else just kind of builds on that. How do you have fun? What are your values?
Yeah,
you know, like, so it's it's cool, you know. So it's all about, you know, getting to know those other people. I think there's so many movies that are about that, where like, you know, the black cop meets the white cop and they both realize they like to dance. And,
or The Blind Side. That's like a
like the same type of women, you know, like, oh yeah, all those different, even like what American History X, you saw that, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Where like all these people got to know each other, and like, hey, you're not that bad after all. You know, like I grew up hating black people, and then he met some black people, and it's like, oh, we're kind of the same, you know. So
yeah,
all that same.
Do you think a movie like that could be made today?
That I think it that's a great question. Not
maybe not as hardcore as it was. Like it was, but even Pulp Fiction, man. This is I posted about this on Facebook, but I think you saw it. I put it on one of your statuses, maybe, but. So I saw it like as a kid and didn't really register to me because I saw it as a kid and probably couldn't appreciate it. So I was like, you know, this movie is a movie that just is loved by everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I need to like watch this as an adult. So I watch it, and you know, a few of these scenes, the N-word is like being so loosely used. I'm like, there's no fucking way. I mean, the 90s wasn't that long ago. Like, there's no way like this shit just slid.
We're talking about Quentin Tarantino. If we look at
but even before his scene, or it was either before it, but like, you know, when they're seeing those racist people at the pawn shop or whatever towards the end of the movie, or yeah,
yes, oh yeah, grab it inward by yeah.
So they both are saying shit like that, yeah.
But when you look at Django, like that, there was a whole bunch of N-words in that movie. You know, I guess it was set in a different time period. But yeah, Quentin Tarantino likes to do that a lot. I think he uses it. You know, like artists, they'll like rappers like us. We use words in a different way that have different meanings. He even does that with the N-word. Like if you notice that one part where Ving Rhames and Bruce Willis have their one scene where Ving Rhames is trying to get Bruce Willis to throw the fight. And then at some point he's like, hey, you my nigga, right? And then Bruce Willis says, it would seem so. And so like Ving Rhames meant you my nigga, as in, you know, you my man, so you gonna hold me down. But Bruce Willis was thinking, no, I'm your nigger because you want me to do something that I don't want to do, but you're in charge, so I have to go be your slave, basically.
Well, that's an interesting way of looking. I didn't even catch that, but yeah, I think you're right though.
So it was like little stuff. So I think Quentin Tarantino just sees it as another word, just like every other word, which at the end of the day it is. It just has so much weight behind it.
Yeah.
You know? So,
but yeah, I was watching that. I was like, there's no way. Someone posted a thing today. They said, because the whole DaBaby thing, and they're like, you know, someone posted on Twitter. They said if Eminem during the Marshall Mathers LP era because Lollapalooza, I don't know if you heard, but like DaBaby's kind of on this tour or whatever. Lollapalooza pulled his set, so they're not letting him perform because of the stuff. So the person posted like, do you think Eminem would be allowed to continue to perform? And I think they were trying to make it like a racial thing. And I was like, dude, if Eminem tried coming out today, he wouldn't make it to the record deal, let alone the second album. Like, there's no way if you have that much like homophobic shit in your lyrics. Like I mean, a lot of rappers, you know, used to freely say stuff. Like even during the DMX thing, like after he died, I went back and listened to his catalog. And like, what is it? Where the hood at? he goes on like this whole like anti-gay tirade for like no reason. There's like nothing that has to do with even the song. Like I'm like, but he just goes on it like I show no love to homo thugs and like literally just like doubles down. Like he goes like he could have stopped there and you could have been like, oh, maybe he's saying it like he doesn't like it's just the person wants to be a thug but isn't. But no, he like is very specific about what he's talking about.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, back then that was cool, but I think it's kind of like that pendulum swing of society where it was so okay to treat gay people like crap, and now it's like you can't even think about doing that or we're going to destroy you. And it's like so now we've reached that point in society, which I mean, I guess that like gay people have been treated so unfairly in the bad direction for so long. Now I guess it's to the point where it's like now they're treated unfairly in a good way where they get like preferential treatment. You know, maybe could have said his whole career is based off of negativity and doing bad things to people.
The baby?
I mean, we shot the guy. She shot people before. He talks about selling drugs and shooting other people.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, but then when you say something about homosexuals now, because if he just said, "Yo, I want to shoot a nigga in the face right now," that would be fine. But if he said, "I want to shoot a gay person in the face right now,"
right? No, I see what you're saying.
Crossing the line,
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I'm not the baby's lawyer by any means. I from what my understanding is that the shootings are in self-defense. I don't know. I wasn't there. I have no legal precedence here.
Yeah, you're right. That shooting was in self-defense. But I'm saying if he came out there and said, "I want to shoot a random person in the face right now," then that wouldn't have made the news. But if he said, "I want to shoot a gay person in the face," then that.
Well, if you even say anything about a gay person, right? Forget even saying shoot.
Yeah,
but I think here's what I think happened though with the baby though. I think a lot of people are starting to do this. So let's take it back to the 90s. Let's kind of go to the 90s and then come back, right? So I remember I was a kid in the 90s. So like I was definitely not conscious of everything that was going on. But I remember hearing people, the first time I guess I remember hearing people complain about political correctness was the 90s. I mean, even Bill Maher had that show Politically Incorrect. So this was something in the zeitgeist, right? Mm-hmm. But I had no understanding of what they were even talking about at the time. But what it seems happened, so I feel like the political correctness thing kind of started in the early 90s. Now, also what happened in the early 90s with hip hop, a lot of the pro-black stuff, right? The Public Enemy, the Tribe Called Quest, X-Clan, all this kind of stuff, right? So it's very kind of almost, there's a lot of similarities between both time periods. And then end of the 90s, what happens, people start kind of go like purposely, whether it's even outside of hip hop, right? You have Marilyn Manson that's purposely like doing the craziest stuff he could think of. And it seemed like everybody, especially music wise, movie wise, they were like, we're the antithesis of this political correctness. We're going to go as crazy the other way, to the point where we're basically saying this on purpose. Like, and speaking of the Marshall Mathers LP, so he has a line where, and this is literally one of the craziest lines. He blurs it out, but I'm promise he actually said it, like I'm positive. So he goes, I drink more something. What does he say? In Criminal, he says, I drink more liquor till you want to fuck me up, like I said the word, and then it blinks out, right?
Yes.
So like that's how, and like nobody had a problem with it, and like it was just like because people knew he was kind of trolling, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody thought Eminem was a racist at that point, right? Nobody was like, this is what he's doing this because the world has been so sensitive that like you're gonna stick out, and it's gonna actually help propel you for showing how like daring you are. It becomes naughty to say shit like this. You're kind of like a bad boy. You're kind of like, it's taboo, right? When something becomes taboo, it becomes cool, so it's like and so the baby, because that shit wasn't the only thing that happened, right? Before that even happened, right after Meg Thee Stallion's performance, who does he bring out? He brings out fucking Tory Lanez. So he's purposely trying to push the envelope and be a troll and stuff, because he knows that, number one, I think he also is someone again, someone who's killed people is probably like, no, like this fucking society is too soft.
Right.
Like I'm just gonna be like, I'm just gonna say some wild shit and fuck them. Like I think that's his mindset.
Yes.
And so he did, and he did everything in his power to offend as many people. I think that's pretty clear, right? He was like, I'm gonna fucking offend as many people as I can. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like it was definitely, he thought about it. It wasn't like some people are talking about it like it was like, oh, that's just who he is, and he just was speaking off cuff. Like, no, I think it was he thought about this beforehand.
I would disagree to that extent. I think that he did bring out Tory Lanez and them to offend people and stuff like that, and he does like to be edgy and offensive. But I think that, you know, when it comes to certain subsets and subcategories of America, when it comes to, like, you know, thugs and especially people from the South, they are not on the same level of acceptance of gay people as the rest of society is. So I think I don't think he was really thinking on it on that level. He was just being himself, because it's like, you know, it's just like, you know, behind closed doors, like there are still a lot of white people who say the N-word in a racist way.
No, I get it. I get what you're saying. And I know that in the hip hop community, there's a lot of homophobia, and black culture, there's homophobia, but he's never done that. He's gone his whole career without ever saying something. So this is why I feel like, none of his lyrics have been homophobic. He's been really cool with Lil Nas X. So I don't think he's actually, I don't think he's really like that. He's got a bunch of pictures and a bunch of stuff with his shirt off and, like, you know, hugging up on Lil Nas X. I don't think he's really like that. I honestly don't.
He should have brought that up. Like he should have brought that up over these past couple of days.
I don't think he's trying to save it. That's what I'm saying, though. I think what he sees happening, and in the long run, he may end up on top because of it. I think he sees a wave of rebellion against the cancel culture, and he's like, I'm going to get on this wave first. And that way, when this wave really catches on, people can see, oh, I'm not riding the wave. I fucking helped create this wave. Because the wave, we have to, right, if things are, what is it, cyclic, what's the word, how do you pronounce it?
Cyclical.
Yeah, cyclical. If things are cyclical, then what happened in the late 90s, early 2000s is probably going to happen again, especially when society's been so hard on censorship lately and so hard on, like, trying to say, you know, like, even the slightest thing, like, people get canceled for not like like trying to be nice about something, right? Like, people are like trying to be you can see people trying to be careful about the words, and then people jump on them still. Oh, they had microaggressions, right? So it's so yeah, people are sick of it at this point. And I think the wave is definitely coming. And it's you know, I feel like I think it was a conscious decision. I think he's thinking of it like, this is going to be good for the long run. People are going to see that I did not cave to this, and historically I'm going to end up like a hero. I truly believe that. I think he's smarter than maybe you're giving him credit for, or a lot of people are.
No, I think he's not as smart as you're giving him credit for.
Yeah, he's not a mastermind. He's not
a mastermind. He's just doing whatever comes to his mind, basically. But and some aspects, he was just kind of going off the. I think he was going off the cuff, and I don't think he had the presence of mind to think that it was going to, because he's losing money now, you know, and yeah, so yeah.
No, I think the consequences are definitely there. Maybe he didn't think. Here's what I'll give it. Maybe he didn't think the concept. Maybe he thought the wave would happen right after he did that. Maybe he was like, "All right, I'm gonna say this, and everybody's gonna love me."
Maybe, yeah. He's probably drinking and smoking and taking drinks. Because when he performs, it seems like he loves performing and he feels comfortable. All his people is all my fans. He does stage diving and stuff. So he's like, I'm at home. I'm gonna say what I want because I'm at home. And, you know, hey, what are you going to do about it? You know, if he actually has pictures with Lil Nas X, like you said, then it should just be like when Eminem came out with Elton John and did the song. It's like, hey, he says. Yeah,
but the Elton John thing happened after Eminem's thing. The Lil Nas X thing happened before. And now Lil Nas X was like, yeah, fuck this guy kind of thing. So so it's not.
Yeah, then that's different, you know. So. The baby, I didn't know that the baby was directing all these videos that he does. Like, shout out to him because like those videos are really well done. Like the way he does this, like this little Busta Rhymes thing in this video.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of the baby, man, and I fucks with his music. I love his style, and I don't think that's one thing that I guess where I'm defending him a lot is, you know, despite actually I guess killing people in real life, I don't feel like his music is really filled with that much negative things or anything like that. It seems like just all his music is just fun. It just seems fun. It doesn't seem like it's like, you know, anything like super dark or negative or hateful to anybody. So
it's more of that, like that the like braggadocio is probably not a word, but whatever, you know, that
yeah, it's more braggadocious than anything, but that's so is everything. So it's I'm a fan of him. I like him, you know. If you said who's your favorite like rapper from the newest generation, it's definitely him. Like he seems like he's got his shit together. He's an amazing performer.
Oh yeah.
You know, anybody who I see that's like putting their heart and soul into it, like he is, you can't do anything but love that, appreciate it. So
yeah, I think he probably has to lay low a little bit, like Derek Jackson did, and then he'll be able to come. Like,
what happened with Janet Jackson?
No, Derek Jackson.
Oh, okay.
Just lay low for like a couple of months and then come back out. I mean, yeah, Janet Jackson had to lay low like once her titty came out.
Yeah, after the Super Bowl.
Which was sad because I don't think that was. I think that was Justin Timberlake's fault, but her career suffered for it. You know, but yeah, she had to lay low for a little bit.
I think it was both of them, to be fair. That titty patch was like Velcro, bro. It wasn't like he was able to pull that titty out way too easy. I've been pulling out titties my whole life, and I've never been able to pull a titty out that
way. Good on you, you know. or like Arnold Schwarzenegger took a hit when he I guess he was with his maid or something, like they had a whole baby with her, and then that kind of messed up his image.
Oh,
but
yeah.
then he laid low for a while and he just came back and like it's like it never happened.
Yeah.
Know? Yeah, he'll be all right.
I like Arnold, man. I think he should. I would totally like waive the whole whatever law it is, the national law about running for president. I think he's a good guy, man. I think he'd be. Apparently, he has a really high IQ. I didn't know that. He has like a 130 IQ or something.
Okay, you wouldn't think so. He doesn't come off as a very smart guy. But are you saying he can't run for president?
Yeah, because he wasn't born here. Isn't that like a law?
See, I was thinking since he ran for the mayor, he was the mayor.
You're allowed to be governor. Even Jennifer Granholm, who was governor here, she was born in Canada, so she could be governor, but you can't be president. So it's like, but you're gonna give him power to be governor. I mean, fuck it.
Yeah, I was thinking about. I think they were saying you had to be here for a certain amount of time, because if you remember, if you think about it, the first couple American presidents weren't born here because there was no America. Like George Washington wasn't born here. But
exactly. Well, George Washington, the funniest thing about him, and this doesn't get brought up a lot, but I got like really in depth with the George Washington thing. The only reason this guy, let alone fought the revolution, but led it, is not because he cared about taxes or any of this other like stuff that you might consider noble or the reasons the revolution happened in the first place. He actually he was a loyal soldier to the Red Army. He was a loyal soldier to the British, and they had a rule because they saw the people who were actually in England superior than the colonials.
Mm-hmm.
And he worked his way up as far as he could in the Red Army, as like, I guess, I don't know if you want to call it American, a colonial, whatever you'd call this plot of land at that point in time. And he was like a high ranking person. He's like, you know, I deserve to be like a commander or something and all that kind of stuff. And he kept asking for a promotion and he was super loyal to them. Mm-hmm. And they were just like, were like, no, we're not going to do it because you're not actually English. Like, so they looked at him lower because he was born here. He wasn't born in England. So he can never get a higher ranking in their military.
You're saying George Washington was born here in America, or whatever America
in the colonies, whatever you want to call them. Yeah,
I thought he was born in England. So.
No. I mean, you got to remember that the people in Europe started coming here hundreds of years before the 1700s. So yeah, he was born here. He actually inherited a tobacco farm, so he was at least a few generations American. But yeah, that's the only reason. And the revolution was already starting to be planned. And eventually he was just like, dude, like, what the fuck, man? I'm like one of your guys' best soldiers. You know, I've fought successful campaigns against the French and all this kind of stuff. And they would not let him get a higher ranking because of he was born here. And so because he was so pissed off about that, the revolution was already starting to be happening. And he sat down with like Thomas Jefferson and whoever these other guys were at the time, Ben Franklin and whatever. And they were like, you know, you're a great military guy, because all these other guys were not military at all, right? They were fucking businessmen and, you know, just like fucking people doing what we're doing, like talking and drinking and smoking cigars. That's all they were doing. They've never fought in any battles, and he has. And they're like, look, like, you're a great leader, like, be the commander of this revolution and help lead it. And so that's the only reason that happened. If all they would have had to do is give this guy a fucking promotion, and the American Revolution would have been toast, because the rest of everybody else that was fighting in that were farmers, were like just like people who were not the best military trained people at all, people who were drunks, like just
probably need better history teaching. Well, I mean, like, I do like that whole patriotic eagles and flags type of stuff, where it's like George Washington were like basically like these superhero gods. I like that type of history, but when you come to find out that it's not true, it kind of sucks, because we like, you know, that's the kind of stuff that we learned in school, where it's like these guys were like, they were like gods almost, and they all did everything right, and they had all the most noble intentions. And then when you find out that they were just regular people, then it's like, oh, or that they didn't, like, oh, Abraham Lincoln didn't really care about black people. He just wanted to, and it's like, oh, all right. I thought that this guy was someone like Superman, basically.
Yeah.
Like, he was just some guy. And it's like, oh, that kind of sucks. So I think that's what, to some extent, that's what the right is fighting against. They want to keep that more idealistic perception of history and American patriotism and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that can still exist as an ideal. We can still kind of think of them that way, but we have to know, okay, yeah, the real history isn't like this. We can kind of stylize it to an extent if we want, but that's not the truth, and we have to, you know, live accordingly.
Well, we should be able to be more human and more realistic about it, but I wonder maybe if that's the only way to do it is have this kind of false god kind of view of it. Like Jordan Peterson, his whole thing is weird because he talks about Christianity, but he pretty much is saying that he's not a Christian. Like, it's, if you really listen to what he says, he talks about Christianity in a way that like is like, you should believe this because of the story. Like, he talks about the Bible like that it's, he basically is saying the Bible is not literal. Like, the whole purpose of the story is for this message of life. And that's not typically how Christians would want to, you know, they want you to believe that this actually happened. This is a historic record, right? But he's not telling it like that. So it's, but he won't admit to being an atheist, but I'm pretty sure he is, based on how he talks about that. But he talks about how it's important, like these archetypes are important because, you know, we have to have something that we can't live up to, right? We have to have something, some type of thing in the sky, some type of goal or some type of thing that is just like unachievable, so we can look forward to. So, you know, I wonder if there is some importance to that. I would hope that most people could say, look, these were human beings. You know, some of the reasons for the revolution were good. Some of them were unfortunately selfish and just people who wanted to keep their tax money, like Thomas Jefferson. And, you know, like he's, you know, he was, what's funny about it too, because you mentioned this kind of like falsehood is like, when we think about the forefathers, we think about like all these guys getting along, right? They were just like a brotherhood. But the second, and this was the thing that I learned from when I got in depth with this George Washington thing. Like George Washington did not want there to be political parties.
Mm-hmm.
He did, you know, he didn't even want to be president, right? So he was just like, look, I did the revolution. That's cool. And they're like, no, you should, you know, we should lead the country for X amount of time just to unite everybody because you're such a good leader, right? Because the rest of these guys that were doing what we're doing, right, drinking and smoking, they were the political minded people, right? And so they knew, okay, everybody loves this guy. Let's make him the first president. He didn't even want to be president. And at that point, there were no term limits or anything, right? So, you know, he's like, okay, like, you know, Thomas Jefferson, you're in my everybody who was like part of the leading collective people were all in his cabinet. Thomas Jefferson helped him. Hamilton helped him. All these guys helped him. Well, soon as the presidency officially starts, you know, Hamilton and Jefferson really didn't like each other. They had a lot of issues. Hamilton wanted a more centralized government. Jefferson and Alexander, whoever, whatever, they, you know, there's basically there was a split from day one of the presidency. The split happened, and you know, Thomas Jefferson kept telling George Washington, like, you know, George Washington thought like having a centralized government made sense because we just fought to become a country, right? So you got to have a centralized power. Thomas Jefferson did not like that. And you know, because they spent so much resources and money on the war, they needed to raise taxes to get some of that revenue back to try to rebuild infrastructure or whatever. And Thomas Jefferson, right from day one, is like, no, you can't do that. We just fought a war against taxes. And so this guy buys a newspaper and starts calling George Washington King Washington. He wants to raise your taxes. Meanwhile, this guy is in this fucking guy's cabinet, dude. Like, so this was like the beginning of like the whole Fox News thing. Like this type of shit happened from like day one. Like it was just, this guy was literally going behind his back, supposed to be his boy, and like putting all these terrible stories out about him. And he's like, you're calling me a king. I don't even fucking want to be president. You're just making me be president because you're not popular enough to become president. Like, so it's a really crazy, the history of the country is fucking crazy. Yeah. For sure, man. But on that note, man, it's been a pleasure. I feel like it's been 2 hours that shit flew by.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I gotta give you a cheers. You made me feel like an alcoholic. I polished off the rest of my bottle.
Nice. Yeah, still got. I'm gonna save this for the next one, I guess.
Yeah. We'll make this a thing.
All right.
Came back on you instead.
Easy. Have a good night.
You too, man.
We ain't partners and we damn sure ain't friends. Raising hell till that's where you descend. You a damsel distressed, and I ain't Captain Save a Hole neither. It's the first the rent due. Pay is gonna leave her. Any questions? Save it for the teacher. Only thing that you should ask is what's a pay me for.